You can scream and shout with all your might. Dig in your heels and hold on tight. Either you are wrong or I am right.
Don't forget the ever-present third possibility. You are wrong, and you are, and I am right. The crowd goes wild. I mean, can you blame them? In the presence of my greatness. It is the 14th of August here at the palatial recording studios of the Cynical Libertarian Society. Randy is the lovely, the adorable Randy is in the control room. I am your, of course, Skippy, your host of Stating the Obvious. Why? Because only I can state the obvious this damn good. Because only I can tell you people the things you need to know. And we're picking up where we left off in the previous, but I've got some other things to throw in here. It is a nice, cloudy, overcast, cool, semi-rainy day here in the People's Republic of Fort Collins. This is a letter to the editor from Fortune Small Business magazine. This is in the June 2005 issue. Randy, I hope the microphone didn't pick up that I just did. It did, didn't it? That's great. Can we do something about that? I can see the waveform. Okay, that's better. Okay. Oh yes, thank you. The email address for Stating the Obvious is sto@204eastsouth.com. The Cynical Libertarian Society is, of course, also located at 204eastsouth.com. Now, let me get into this here, because I got a lot to do today, other than just standing here recording Stating the Obvious. Yes, it's library day. I got a buttload of books to take back, too. The Fortune Small Business had an article a couple of issues ago about entrepreneurs tapping the booming market of disabled Americans. However, this individual wrote, alright, I have to find the letter. Here we go. This is from an idiot named Lee Allen from Covina, California. Now, the fact that this person is from California, the premier People's Republic. I mean, Colorado is a communist state, but still not approaching California. Listen to this. This is what Lee Allen writes. I completely believe in the Americans with Disabilities Act and the reasons we have it and obey it. I was the owner of a corporation for 38 years in California, and I always complied with this law and saw to it that every disabled person got preferred treatment and personal attention from all my employees. Anyone who cannot follow these very simple laws and regulations should not be in business at all. The law requires everyone in America to get written copies of these laws and read them before he can file for and open a business of any kind. Anyone who opens a business and purchases a business license signs his name to the license, which states that he has obtained and read all the laws and is in total compliance with them. These laws are so very necessary to our way of life in America. It is laws like these that make America the greatest nation in the world in which to live, and why all the people of other nations want to live in America. There is so much wrong with this. This is so sick. This is so sad. This is so pathetic. I could probably spend an entire edition of Stating the Obvious on this letter. There is so much wrong with this. He always saw to it that every disabled person got preferred treatment. He's admitting that he gave disabled people preferred treatment. Now, Isn't liberalism, isn't multiculturalism, isn't tolerance, isn't the American Disabilities Act all about treating people equally? But wait, if you're giving the handicapped people, is that still the politically correct word for cripples, Randy? Because I can't keep up with this shit. It's still handicapped? It hasn't changed yet? Oh, differently abled? See, I can't keep up. If anybody out there knows the politically correct word for crippled people this week, please email me and let me know. He gave crippled people preferential treatment. Now, where's your equality here? Anyone who cannot follow these very simple laws and regulations should not be in business at all. The Americans with Disabilities Act is a simple law. How many of you out there have actually read and it says down here, which states he has obtained and read all the laws and is in total compliance with them. The people who wrote the Americans with Disabilities Act have not read the entire Americans with Disabilities Act. How many? Oh no! We need to. I should have thought about this before we started recording. It's time. Let me fire up the Google machine here. Americans with Disabilities Act. How many pages? How many pages is the Americans with Disabilities Act? I wonder. I'm going to see if we can find out here in a minute. I also noticed that he says the law requires everyone in America to get written copies of these laws and read them before he can file for and open a business of any kind. Now that's not very politically correct. It should say before he and or she. See, we're not being very inclusive here, Mr. Lee Allen, of the female gender. I think that's very sexist. These laws... Stop it. Oh wait, let's see, I'm getting some results. Nope, nothing useful here. No, getting nothing useful here. Nope. Let me try the magic quotes. These laws are so very necessary to our way of life in America. Do I really have to explain this? Yes. It's the Americans with Disabilities Act that makes our way of life here in America happen. It is laws like these that make America the greatest nation in the world in which to live, and why the peoples of all the nations... You know what? Nobody in another country is sitting around saying, wow, I want to go to America because they have an Americans with Disabilities Act. I want to go to America because if you open a business, the government will come along and force you to install a wheelchair ramp, even if you don't need a wheelchair ramp. Nobody in another country is sitting around saying that. This is absolutely absurd, and this illustrates to us the average mentality of the average American from the very average People's Republic of California. This is why California should fall off and sink into the ocean, because people like Lee Allen live there. Which brings me... Oh wait, let's see, nope. Nope. Useless. Nope. No, well, we will. Well, no. No, nothing useful. I will attempt later on to find out how many pages the Americans with Disabilities Act is. I'm going to hazard a guess it's a few more than 20. Is the opera getting loud? Can you hear it on the monitor? Okay, good. This brings me to an interesting article from, is this the same issue? From the very same issue of Fortune Small Business. There's a gentleman named Stephen Glass who has invented a table saw which passes an electric current through the blade. And making a long story short, the purpose of all of this is that when your finger comes in contact with the spinning blade of the table saw, it stops the blade immediately, thus keeping you from cutting your finger off. Now, one might think that a table saw that has a built-in safety mechanism to keep you from cutting your finger off would be a really good idea, and people would want to sell that. However, let me read to you from this article. He approached Delta Machinery, headquartered in Jackson, Tennessee, one of the largest table saw manufacturers, but Gass says the company told him safety doesn't sell. Quote, "I was flabbergasted. The industry didn't see this as a solution to a problem," says Gass. Quote, "They saw it as a problem because it creates a product liability issue for them," unquote. In other words, the existence of such technology could make saw manufacturers who don't use it seem negligent. And again, here we have a classic example of the same kind of mentality that Lee Allen and people like him see the world in. We can't create a safer piece of technology because then people who don't use that technology would be negligent and would be sued by the same filthy little lawyers who gave us the American with Disabilities Act and who expect people to read all however many pages of it there are without actually reading any of this themselves. And these very same lawyers who will sue you if you don't have a wheelchair ramp, even if you don't need a wheelchair ramp. And this is one of those things, I mean, who do you blame this on? Do you blame this on the ignorance of the corporation that won't make the safer table saw? Do you blame this on the ignorance of the lawyers who are going to sue people for not making a safer table saw? Or, I mean, if you make the safer table saw and somebody manages to cut their finger off anyhow, then they get sued for claiming the table saw was safe when it quote-unquote really wasn't. It goes on and on and on. These laws are so very necessary to our way of life in America. It is laws like these that make America the greatest nation in the world in which to live, and why all the peoples of all other nations want to live in America. It's sad. It's sad, Randy. I know. Alright, stop. Yes. Thank God that he's in California. There's still a chance the earthquake will kill him. When I left off on the last, what was it, part 3 that we did yesterday, right? When we left off of part 3, we were talking about Bush masterminding 9/11. Even though he's a complete idiot, he still somehow managed to mastermind 9/11. Here's something else that I find interesting, because there's two theories on this. There's two theories floating around. One theory is that George Bush faked 9/11 so that his friends could make money. The other theory floating out there is that Bush knew 9/11 was going to happen. They knew the terrorist attacks were going to take place, but they chose to not do anything about it so that they could make money. Now, what I find interesting here is, first of all, the idea that Bush masterminded 9/11, I find that pretty laughable. Now, the idea that they might have known this was coming and chose to do nothing about it, this is a little more plausible, simply because we have similar cases in history, namely Perl Harbour. FDR, Winston Churchill, both knew the Japanese attack on Perl Harbour was coming. Neither of them did anything about it because they wanted America in the war. My question is this, for you liberal Democrats out there. Why is it you still worship FDR as a god, even though he did nothing while America was attacked? But you regard George Bush as evil because he did nothing while America was attacked. Think about it. FDR, GWB did the same thing. Both of them. If GWB knew this attack was coming before it happened, all he did was the very same thing that your hero, FDR, did. Alright, we are back to, this is an editorial piece from the Bullhorn, or Bullshit, rather, from Bethany somebody. I can't pronounce her name, I'm not even going to try. Khoutek. I don't have a chance to pronounce that, and I'm not going to do it, because I don't need to insult Bethany by making fun of her name. I can insult Bethany by making fun of her sad little pathetic excuses for ideas. This one's pretty hilarious, and I'm going to actually blow through this entire column and respond appropriately, because this whole thing is just off the wall. Here we go. Bethany writes, I'm getting pretty tired of all these concessions, the speeches, the letters, the statements, the press releases from Kerry to Kinsey to Cafflis. Sure, they're all well-meaning and their purpose ostensibly is to heal and unite and all that crap, but they're also just a little difficult to swallow. Candidates spend months pounding home reasons their opponent is not fit for the job, or at least why they themselves are better, then do a 180 on November the 3rd and suddenly sing the praises of their competitor. Where is good old-fashioned anger? I'm not talking about being mean-spirited or a bad loser or displaying poor sportsmanship. You can even keep your concession speech, but especially in John Kerry's case, the immediate, oh-so-gracious post-election statement, if anything, did a disservice to the 56 million voters sitting here in disbelief, depression, helplessness, and yes, anger over the results. I don't know of any Kerry backers who smiled and nodded understandingly as their candidate discussed his concession phone convo with the presently mandate-drunk George W. Bush about the danger of dividing our country and the desperate need for unity. Or how about, in an American election there are no losers, because whether or not our candidates are successful, the next morning we all wake up as Americans. Wrong. In this American election, you lost, Senator. The first rational, intelligent thing I've heard come out of the mouth of a liberal in a long time. Yes, Bethany's right. You did lose. You lost. You lost, Kerry. And we lost because of it, and I, for one, am pissed off, still am, and the simplified rhetoric and patronizing language of Kerry's address, and that of most concession statements for that matter, do not adequately reflect the underlying sentiment of the electorate. First of all, the patronizing quality of Kerry's address comes from the fact that Democrats are patronizing people. I mean, as we just learned a few minutes ago from this jackass in California, it is laws that force people to treat disabled people different than they treat everybody else that make this country great. It is the entire patronizing effect. It is Democrats telling black people, you are too stupid to run your own life. Vote for us and we'll force people to hire you because black people are too dumb to get jobs. It's Democrats who patronize old people and tell them, old people, the Republicans are coming to take away your Social Security. You must vote for us, and we will protect you from the evil Republicans because you're too stupid to figure out for yourself what's good for you and what's bad for you. The reason, Bethany, that these speeches are patronizing is because your party is the party of patronization. Your party is the party of treating everybody like children who are too stupid to run their own lives because, of course, most people who vote Democrat are too stupid to run their own lives. Why are candidates, she continues. Oh, and by the way, she says, do not adequately reflect the underlying sentiments of the electorate. Bethany, what the hell do you know about it? The only person whose sentiments you know is yours. I just love these people who are under the impression that they know what everybody else in the world thinks and how they feel and everything else. I lost my place. Where was I? Here we go. Bethany continues. Why are candidates so loath to confront, accept, and address that anger? Since when has it become such a taboo emotion in American politics? Maybe it's because we've forgotten how to get good and mad without getting negative and petty. Do you think that Democrats, and Republicans for that matter, may have forgotten how to get mad without getting negative and petty? Every election I can remember in my lifetime has been negative and petty. Virtually every political action is negative and petty. Because we often have no place to go with anger, it tends to steep inside until it manifests itself as spite or maliciousness towards the other side. Of course, another reason why this anger that Bethany's talking about steeps inside of us is because you're not allowed to release it. Because if you release it, some Democrat will show up with a speech code and sue you or imprison you or something like that for talking bad about somebody. On the other hand, take Howard Dean, for example. He was mad about the economy, about healthcare, especially about the Iraq War, and about the fact that he didn't get elected. That was me adding that. And suddenly, millions of Americans, many of whom were political virgins, This is what they teach in journalism school. Millions of Americans, many of whom were political virgins, identified with him and found an outlet, a voice for the groundswell of feelings they hadn't been allowed to surface anywhere else in the sterile primary climate. Who created the sterile primary climate? Well, the Democratic Party did. The media didn't know how to handle it. Powdered anchors labeled him a firebrand and devoted entire frowning segments to Dean's anger. The intense media scrutiny on this aspect of his personality alone arguably helped to sink him. Oh, now wait, Bethany. I thought the media was your buddies. The media lied and lied and lied in a desperate attempt to get John Kerry elected and still failed. But at least she recognizes. And see, I said the same thing. I want to point out, I said the same thing when Dean had his little blow-up or whatever, which I have to admit I didn't actually see. I don't know what happened, and I don't care. Here's the point I want to make about Dean's little blow-up, is we live in a country where apparently, if you're a politician, you're supposed to be a fucking robot. You're not supposed to have an emotional outburst or something. I say, you know what, if something seriously pisses you the fuck off, and you want to yell about it and pick something up and throw it across the room, what the fuck is wrong with that? What's wrong with that? I mean, most normal people get pissed off sometimes. Most normal people toss something across the room once in a while. Most normal people jump up and down. Now, I'm not talking about you should kick your dog and beat your wife and strangle your children, that kind of anger. And I'm not saying you should burn down your fucking house and break out the windows and go over to the neighbor's house and break out their windows too. But you know, yelling and screaming and using some bad language and breaking the occasional replaceable, expendable object has never hurt anybody in the goddamn history of the world. But you people out there, when you seek out politicians, you deliberately, people just like Bethany here, seek out and look for stupid, boring, idiot people who have no emotions, who have no intelligence, who just kind of stand there like Al Gore going, I invented the internet. These are the people that you dredge up and support in the elections. After the primaries, I received as a gift from my Republican father. This explains a lot. The only reason Bethany is a liberal is because her father's a Republican and she's trying to rebel. I guarantee she's another one of those people who has no clue why she believes what she believes, other than she just knows she believes it because she saw it on television. After the primaries, I received as a gift from my Republican father a 12-inch tall Mean Dean plastic doll, which portrays a scowling Howard with giant pecs, imposing black boots, and clenched fist, which lays the I have a scream speech when you press its back. Mean Dean is routinely spotted in various states of undress and often in compromising positions with the office's George W. Bush doll zooming around in the bullhorn pad in the toy Hummer we bought for a photo shoot to an accompanying past cover story. This is the editor of the Rocky Mountain Bullhorn, which claims it is a valid source of media, news, information, admitting that she and her journalistic, college-educated staff spend their time at the office making their Howard Dean doll and their George Bush doll have sex with each other. Now this is where many of you out there get your information from. Many of you listening to me who say, Skippy, you're a fucking asshole. Nothing you say is right. Why are you wrong? Because you say the word fuck all the time, and you make fun of people. You're a fucking idiot. You're wrong. But people who take little plastic dolls and have the little plastic dolls fuck each other, see, that's what you consider a valid source of social, economic, and political information. And some of you wonder why I say the word fuck and why I insult you. I continue reading from Bethany's column here. Although Dean eventually conceded to Kerry, he maintained his criticism and anger towards the Bush administration and even towards his own Democratic Party. But he also formed Democracy for America, a grassroots organization. I love the way Democrats call everything grassroots. Yes, it was started by a rich white man who was trying to run for president but failed. That's a grassroots organization if you're a Democrat. Randy, I know what you're talking about, because Republican grassroots organizations are also started by rich white men who are politicians. So you have no room to laugh on that one. A grassroots organization designed to put progressive candidates, in other words, people who are too stupid to know they're liberals, progressive candidates at all levels in office. He still tours the country speaking, and he routinely writes scathing op-eds for newspapers and websites. So that's really helping. I'm writing a scathing commentary. See, and this is another thing liberals don't get. The difference between writing a scathing op-ed piece and actually getting off your ass and doing something. Perhaps that's what we can learn from Dean. Real, honest anger and frustration have at their heart passion. You don't get truly pissed off about something you don't sort of care about. I'll agree with her on that. She's got a point. And you don't let out a primal yelp like the one Dean unleashed upon Iowa if you're not passionate. At least give the guy that much. And hey, I will. I don't know enough about... I know Howard Dean's an idiot because he's a Democrat and because he's a mainstream politician. But, I totally agree with her on this. I'll give the fact that Dean is passionate. That he wasn't willing to just stand there and be a fucking tree like Kerry and Gore and all these other shitheads. And that's, of course, that's one reason why you could tell Dean wasn't going to make it, because Dean, unlike the other people the Democrats had in their primary, actually had a fucking personality. And as I've stated, the last thing the average American wants when they're selecting their politicians is somebody who has a personality, somebody who's not stupid, somebody who's not boring, somebody who's not traditional, somebody who's not wishy-washy, somebody who doesn't follow the polls. Americans don't want politicians that are actually capable of thinking. Americans don't want politicians that actually have some sort of beliefs that they attained by utilizing rational thought process and that they can support in an intelligent and thoughtful manner in an open debate. That's not what Americans are looking for. And if allowed to breathe, anger can be a powerful motivator for positive action. We pay shrinks good money to tell us it's okay to get mad. I don't know about you, Bethany. I don't pay a shrink shit. I think you need one, though. Anybody who makes little dolls fuck each other probably does need some psychological help. I know that. I'm not sure how she knows that. I'm assuming it's because she has a shrink. I know that, and I was raised in the Midwest where politeness and niceness reign supreme. We use our turn signals in parking lots, smile at strangers, wave to neighbors from our cars, and say things like, "For Pete's sake!" But there's also a time to get downright furious. The last time I visited my parents, I read a story in an Iowa alternative newspaper, in other words, a communist publication, about a mother who is enraged that her son was shipped off to Iraq to fight the president's personal battles and oil war. Her sentiment seems justified to me. We have a lot to be angry about right now. What bothers me is these perfunctory post-November 2 election concessions, that is that they completely ignore the emotion, therefore risk losing the potential for progressive, there's that word again, change it can bring about. For Pete's sake, let's get pissed. Well, Bethany, and she's right that nobody gets pissed off about this shit, but the thing is, what are you going to do if you get pissed? You're just going to try to elect another Democrat who's basically going to do the same things George Bush is doing, because in spite of your intense desire to believe otherwise, as I have pointed out time and time again, the difference between the Republicans and the Democrats is so small as to be barely noticeable. If you truly seek freedom, if you truly seek rationality, if you truly seek logic and intelligence in your government, which you don't, but if you wanted those things, you would be voting Libertarian. You're not. Because that's not what you want. Those pauses were me getting a drink of water. This is an interesting quote. Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services Wade Horn, he said, "We don't need a study, if I remember my biology correctly, to show us that those people who are sexually abstinent have a 0 chance of becoming pregnant or getting someone else pregnant or contracting a sexually transmitted disease." I find it interesting that the bullshit made this a quote of the week, because normally their quote of the week is them making fun of some evil Republican. And I'm just curious which part of that a liberal Democrat would take issue with, because the Republicans may be idiots, but yeah, Randy's thumbing me off. The Republicans may be idiots, because for those of you, I don't think I announced at the beginning of this one that Randy is a Republican. Did I announce that? I didn't. See, normally I plug your Republicanism. Republicans are normally idiots, but there's nothing about that statement which is actually incorrect. Why liberal Democrats would make fun of that is beyond me. We covered in the last issue the article from the bullshit about the smoke clears about the 19-year-old child who cooks at Avogadro's and lives with his parents, who is an expert on demolitions and explosives and building construction and 9/11 and all this other stuff, and who forms a legitimate source for the Bullhorn staff. Of course, then again, considering the Bullhorn staff sits around making little plastic dolls fuck each other, it's not surprising that their idea of a legitimate source of information would be a 19-year-old who lives with his parents. Anyhow, the father, Bill Thompson, of the author of that article, James Thompson, wrote into the Bullhorn. This is what he writes. "I read your article with great interest. I thought you did a good job capturing the beliefs of the 9/11 groups, but didn't question their reasoning enough." Imagine that. A liberal Democrat journalist did not question the beliefs of a bunch of people that he agrees with. Wow, I'm shocked. It's easy to see conspiracy in almost everything in life, and national events like 9/11 are no exception. How this great conspiracy took place only months after Bush took office is amazing. He must be a tremendous leader to concoct and deliver such a catastrophic event in such a short time. It's quite easy to take any piece of information and turn it so a big bully like government was at fault. And this is what I've been saying. Is George Bush a criminal mastermind who could concoct all of this 9/11 attack, or is he the idiot and buffoon that you people keep saying he is? I continue reading. "I think it is entirely possible that the government had information of pending terrorist activity but no idea of the particulars of an attack. How do you warn people of vague threats without creating havoc? I agree with these things. You cannot run around just telling people, well, somebody might fly an airplane into a building, because you create complete chaos." The article did point out, I can't read. The article did point out briefly suggestions about conspiracy theories being nothing new. I remember the buzz about Kennedy when I was in school. Time and maturity soon revealed that it was, as it appeared, the act of a lone gunman. It is absurd to think that the United States of America... It is absurd to think that in the United States of America there are national leaders who would intentionally kill our civilians to profit from some unknown windfall. Now here I have to disagree. I don't think there's anything absurd about this at all. I don't think this is a... Well, I definitely don't think George Bush masterminded 9/11. As I've already said, is it possible that Bush and company had intelligence suggesting 9/11 was coming and neglected to do anything about it? Just as FDR did the same with Perl Harbour, I think that is absolutely possible. The idea that the American government would not allow... I mean, look, this is the same American... The American government would not allow... What is he right here? The American national leaders would not intentionally kill our civilians to profit from some unknown windfall. Is this the same American government that intentionally killed all the people in the compound in Waco? And some of you may say, well, that was an accident. They didn't mean to burn it down and run over them with a tank and shoot at them with machine guns. Okay, is this the same government that intentionally shot Vicki Weaver in the head as she was holding her baby? I'm pretty sure it is. Is this the same government that routinely conducts the war on drugs, where they break into people's houses unannounced and attack them, and in many circumstances kill them, and in some circumstances have broken into the wrong houses and killed people who are not even slightly suspect for doing drugs? It is. The idea that our government... Is this the same government that sterilized against their own will black people, retarded people, and all these other people back prior to World War II? Is this the same government that put Japanese Americans in concentration camps during World War II? I will submit that our national leaders would quite happily kill American citizens if they saw any benefit in it for them. And this is yet one more reason, this is one more thing that is not a difference between Republicans and Democrats. Both these parties are just as happy to kill American citizens. This is one more reason you need to be voting Libertarian. It is absurd to think that U.S. corporations are conspiring to profit from the misery of our citizens. Now, I don't know what planet Bill Thompson is on that one. I remember after 9/11 seeing the automobile commercials using 9/11 as a selling point. This thing, oh, we in America believe in freedom. And when you drive our car, the Lexus 4730 or whatever, you too can experience that freedom. Or whatever. Do not if you don't think corporations will not try to profit from the death of Americans, I don't know what fucking planet you're living on, but you need to turn on the television and watch some commercials. It is easy to speculate otherwise, but there's never been any proof to the contrary. Don't you think that some young attorney seeking to make his mark would take this bull by the horns and make a name for himself? Jim, it is your job to question these things and report on... Jim, is it your job to question these things and report on the facts, or to blindly report people's views without scrutiny? If you have no responsibility to debunk... God, I cannot read. If you have no responsibility to debunk people's views and opinions, it would indicate to me that you share those views. If this is the case, I think the media has failed in its responsibility to seek the truth. Well, and on that part, Bill and I agree too. The media, especially the quote-unquote independent alternative media, like the people who write for the bullshit, have long ago given up any type of objectivity, any attempt to question those who they agree with. I mean, this is one of those things where I have to find myself agreeing with Rush Limbaugh. I know it's a scary thing. The mainstream media in America is essentially just the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party. What is this? Oh yes, CSU is jacking up tuition. This is unimportant news. Here we have another article, and this is just another, in my opinion, I'm briefly going to talk about this to illustrate yet again the complete lack of understanding possessed by the media. This is an intensely long article, and the main point of this article is to point out that in the western states, that's from Colorado going west, in all of the western states, the okay, I have to back up and start. We see the red and blue map from the presidential election. So everybody says, oh, this is Republican states, oh, these are Democrat states. I have long said that there's no such thing as a Republican state and a Democrat state because, for example, typically, there are many states out there which we see as Republican states on the map when we look at the presidential election, but a lot of those states vote Democrat in local elections because, generally speaking, the American people as a whole tend to vote conservative on national issues and tend to vote Democrat on local issues. And so the bullshit, has written this long article in which they've basically discovered what I just told you. And they show the maps of the western states and who voted Republican, who voted Democrat, and who changed from the 2000 election. And shockingly enough, it shows exactly what I've just said. For example, in the presidential race, the Washington and California were the Democratic states. All the others were Republican. Yet, when it comes to governors, there were far more Democratic states. When it comes to state legislatures, far more states voted for Democrats overwhelmingly. When it comes to the U.S. Senate, 5 more states. What? Oh, that's a half. So 4.5 states that voted Republican. No. Wait, what kind of discrepancy? I'm trying to discern this map here. Yes, 4.5 states in the Senate race voted for senators who were Democrats over. So, the media is so incredibly out of touch that they're still trotting out these maps and saying, look, not every person who is elected in the Republican states is a Republican. This proves that we were right. This proves we should have won. It doesn't prove any of those things. It just proves that people are not as stupid as you think they are. What it proves is that people don't all go out and mindlessly vote Republican. And of course, Democrats believe this because Democrats are definitely the party which is known for always voting Democrat without thinking. Therefore, they have the belief that Republicans are just like them and go out and mindlessly vote Republican without thinking. Actually, I'm not sure I'm willing to argue with that concept. Randy, you vote Republican without thinking, right? You do. You do. Nod your head. You know you do. When's the last time you voted for a Democrat? When's the last time you voted Independent? When's the last time you voted Libertarian? When's the last time you voted Socialist? When's the last time you voted Constitutionalist Party? That's what I thought. See? So Republicans are guilty of it too. But the point is, this idea that the Republican states only vote Republican and the Democrat states only vote Democrat is silly. Although professors at the University of Northern Colorado, UNC is the school over in Greeley, Colorado, which is, 20 miles or so from here. Although professors at the University of Northern Colorado have been told repeatedly by the school there is no dough for salary raises, and after they went without pay increases for 2 years, they recently discovered that times aren't so tough for the college's top dogs. According to the Greeley Tribune, 9 UNC administrators were paid a total of $103,000 in end-of-the-year bonuses, including a hefty $30,000 to UNC President Kay Norton, who has long spouted the woes of a tight budget. Well, these are state-run institutes of higher learning. You think there might be corruption there? It always amazes me when people discover corruption at colleges and make this desperate attempt to appear surprised. Have I talked... Randy, did I ever talk on here about the UNC, about the CSU admin staff and how little they get paid? Yeah, I can't remember either. I think it might be coming up, though. Maybe we'll cover that sometime. What I got going here? This is a letter from Ray Metzler, Greeley, Colorado. Let me read this. How are we on time? Good. Let me read this to you. I find it truly amazing that there has been little or no response to such a hard-hitting article as The Smoke Clears. This is the same article that I was talking about and that I talked about in the previous edition of Stating the Obvious, about the 9/11 people who think that George Bush, the complete moron and idiot, George Bush, masterminded the 9/11 attacks so that he could get rich and his friends. The only response printed thus far is from James Thompson's father in Pennsylvania. Come on, people. Doesn't anyone else see the horrific implications of the physical truths that this piece lays out? Or maybe that's just it exactly. We do, and it's too sinister to face, so we enter into a collective state of denial. You mean kind of like the collective state of denial that occurred when John Kerry lost the election? Wake up, people. Steel buildings have never fallen by fire. Here's another person who is an expert on architecture and steel buildings and all that stuff. And besides, there are photos of survivors peering out of the damaged hole where the raging fires that could melt steel supposedly were burning. Buildings 1, 2, and 7 all fell at or close to free fall speed. Think about that. With little or no resistance. What does that mean in physics? The owner, Larry Silverton, in a PBS interview admitting to pulling Building 7. Pulling is a demo slang for taking down with explosives. A 757 does not make a small hole. Let's start the sentence over. A 757 does not make a small hole, as we are told happened at the Pentagon. The military defense system does not just stand down because they are idiots or disorganized. Washington, D.C. is probably the most protected airspace in the world, and the official story says that we are blindsided by an aircraft that everyone was looking for. Come on, people. Use your intellect, not your emotions. I'm not sure as to why, but as for the what happened, we are being fed a line of lies. Don't you think as a people we should demand to get to the bottom of 9/11? And no, I don't accept the conclusions of the 9/11 Whitewash Commission. We have met the enemy, and it is us. Again, let me point out that here we have another idiot who is an expert on building construction and steel melting and holes that are made by airplanes and all this other stuff. And yet this very same person isn't going to question the Timothy McVeigh attack, where this guy with a truck full of fertilizer, supposedly all by himself, blew up a building. Well, yeah. I mean, in so much of this, this is one of those things I almost wish this would have happened with a Democrat president, because it would have been interesting to see what sort of response and Al Gore would. Can you imagine Al Gore being the president when this happened? See, I can't either. People, what do you think Al Gore would have done? I'm gonna do something that for those of you listening to Stating the Obvious, and perhaps listening to Stating the Obvious for the first time ever. That's a cute cartoon. I'm going to do something that you may have never encountered before in your experience with the media, or with columnists, or with people who are voicing their opinion on things they know nothing about. I am going to simply tell you that I don't know. I don't know. People say, what would Al Gore have done if he was president? Well, I don't know. You sure the fuck don't know. Even Al Gore doesn't know, because Al Gore wasn't president when it happened. Al Gore could sit around and theorize about what Al Gore would have done if this would have happened and he had been president. But even he doesn't know, because if he'd have been president, then he would be psychologically, intellectually, a different person than he is right now. He'd have been in a different position. He'd know different things than what he does now. So nobody knows what the fuck Al Gore would have done. It is interesting to think about, but nobody fucking knows. Here's a little piece of interesting economic activity, economic information. For those of you not in Colorado and don't obviously know this, the People's Republic of Colorado has essentially no economy right now. The economy here is total shit. To those who incessantly preach with fingers crossed tightly behind their backs, cough Governor Owens, that Colorado's economy is on the mend, digest this one. Bankruptcies in the state hit an all-time high, according to the Rocky Mountain News. This bucks the national trend, which shows bankruptcies in most other states on the decline. In addition, foreclosures increased by 18% this year, the second worst year on the books in the department. We're going to talk about Colorado's economy, or specifically Fort Collins' economy, a little bit also. Oh, this is the poetry edition, or excuse me, the annual creative writing issue of the bullshit, which has some poetry in it, which, like this great poem entitled Ejaculation. Ejaculation, my favorite drug, and they don't make crack like that. Wow. We have a poem about ejaculation. This is what the Bullhorn considers creative literature. Don't make me, I love ejaculation. But I mean, seriously, is that the best you can do? Shaun of the Dead. There's a Shaun of the Dead review. If you haven't seen Shaun of the Dead, you should see that movie. I've plugged it before here on Stating the Obvious. It's really good. Oh, yes. Ooh. Stretch. How are we on time? Ooh, we are getting close, aren't we? That's good, though. Oh, I'm looking at this quote. I need to see. Do I have time to put this quote in context? UN Emergency Relief Coordinator Jan Egeland said, quote, "It is beyond me why we are so stingy, really," unquote. Well, you know, if you don't like people's stinginess, then donate more. What does this say here? This was about the Indian Ocean tsunami disaster. She was complaining that among the 30 wealthiest nations, the United States donates the least of its gross national product. Okay, see, here, stupid bitch. See, let me explain something to you, you little fucking stupid United Nations cunt bag. Let me explain to you why we can donate less as a percentage of our GNP. It's because our GNP is so much fucking bigger than all you other little piss-ass fucking countries on this world that should be nuked. Okay? Fuck you, fuck your United Nations, and fuck you judging us. Alright? When you become the greatest country on this planet, when your fucking GNP is as big as ours, when people come from all around the world to go to your shitty little communist socialist universities to learn to be doctors and engineers and make the world a better place, then you can fucking judge us, okay? See, this is called being the greatest nation on earth. Even with all of our fucking problems, even with George Bush up there doing all those crazy things, even with the Democrats having their heads shoved so far up their ass that they think somebody like John Kerry is actually capable of beating George Bush in an election, even with these idiots in California who think that the Americans with Disabilities Act is what makes America a great nation to live in and why people want to come here. No, let me tell you something. Even with all of those things, we are still better than any little fucking piss-ass country anywhere else on this planet. That includes the fucking United Nations collectively. That includes everybody in the United Nations individually. I would take every fucking country out there, France, England, Russia, India, I don't give a fuck who you are. I would wipe my ass with every fucking one of you. Because this is the United States of America, the greatest fucking country on earth. And we can donate a smaller portion of our GNP because our GNP is bigger than anything any of you little motherfuckers out there have ever seen otherwise in your sad little fucking pathetic lives. Kiss my ass.